The following episode is a special 6-part series that was recorded in March 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are still in Geneva, looking out over the snow-topped mountains, and we've got a very special guest here with us today, Andrea Gruber. Andrea's head of special cargo, and she's been looking after special cargo since 2010. Andrea, absolute pleasure to have you on board. Lovely to see you again, and it's always nice to see a lovely, friendly face.
Thank you for the invitation. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. So, Andrea, firstly, what does special cargo mean to you?
Well, it means a lot. Actually, my area of expertise is actually in 3 different areas: transport of live animals, transport of perishable cargo, and transportation of pharmaceutical products. And all of those are very special within their own area. So sensitivity, integrity, quality is one of the key areas in all 3 products.
That's nice. Sensitivity, integrity,
and quality.
Lovely. Love it. Very nice. Yeah, the 3 T's. Very nice. Care. I was talking to Arian about care and how important that word is. So let's start with live animals. And obviously anybody that's got a pet, and I'm actually new to the pet family. I always knew pets growing up and seeing them on farms in Ireland and stuff when me and my brothers were younger. And then we had a family pet that wasn't really cared for. And then I never thought I'd ever have pets, but now we've got 2 dogs, and I absolutely love them. And hopefully my family don't hear this, because then they'll give me stick. But I love them. And care is such an incredibly important word in everything, and especially if it's special cargo. Now, what elements of care have you either seen improve or have influenced as a result of what you're doing with special cargo?
So if we look at the live animal first, and I think there is a duty of care whenever we talk about transportation of live animals, knowing that this is happening since 1930, so it's a long way where animals have been transported by air. I think what is really important is throughout the years the importance of standardization and harmonization. Now, within the transportation of live animals, we have the live animal regulation, which are the worldwide standards for transport of live animal by air. And often when we talk about live animal, people are thinking of their pets, and it's their cats, dogs. But I mean, when we look at the number of different type of animals that have been transported, either these are for relocation, zoological purposes. I mean, there are different really types of animals transported. Big, small, but whatever is being done whenever somebody is shipping live animals is really with the duty of care, making sure the animal welfare is always maintained, safety of the animal as well, and this is where the standard is really important. In all the special cargo, I think, and within IATA being standardized, setting standards within the organization, this is our core business. Ensuring that everyone is doing it to the highest level, again, to ensure quality in transportation. But animal welfare, animal safety, making sure that those are being transported in a human way is what airlines, ground handlers, freight forwarders, but even owners and breeders are actually caring. Because when it comes to your loved ones, when it comes to your pets, you really want to ensure that they are being treated the best way.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, who are probably not as familiar as we are with live animals and the types of animals. So in my early years, I can remember we actually did a whale, we did dolphins, we did lions, I remember one shipment of penguins.
Yeah, it's true.
And one of the crates broke, and I remember one of the warehousemen having to rebuild the crate. And people were watching him, and he was so proud of what he did. And he leant back and looked at it, and everybody started laughing at him because there was one penguin still standing behind him. But the amount of animals that we actually transport and look after it's incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible. I mean, there are different types of animals that are being highly transported. We think about horses. There's a lot of transport of horses. Especially when it comes to competition, different types of competition, and even for the Olympics.
And getting them there in good enough condition to compete.
Yes, absolutely.
and healthy, and with the grooms.
Making sure they are transported in the best condition way so that they can perform right away when they arrive.
Yeah.
Day-old chicks as well are
very
one of
all
the,
the time,
major animals that are transported as well, ensuring these are being taken care of very quickly, and that's where air transport is very important. Speed is really a competitive advantage. But then we have a lot of millions of different type of animals, whether these are invertebrates, spiders, or any there. One would never think of what is in the belly of an aircraft, especially in a passenger. I think next time passengers should be thinking of what type of cargo is actually underneath. It could be a hippopotamus. So there are different types, and whales, yes. Lately, there's some airlines that have actually transported beluga whales from Shanghai back to Iceland in order to put them back into a more natural habitat. So, I mean, the purpose of transporting those animals is very critical, and usually is really to make sure that either for conservation purposes or they are put back into a natural habitat. Yeah. And breeding programs as well in some of the areas. One of the type of animals we don't always think about is bumblebees. Pollination is really, really important right now in different types of the world. So yes, and well, with all those animals, all the different complexity as well.
And it's an area, isn't it? Like one of the earlier series we did was about getting youngsters to come into the business. Mm-hmm. Now, people wouldn't be thinking that's what you would be doing if you went into cargo. There's so many different elements, and obviously the most important thing is the training of people to handle live animals, to understand the reasons as to why there are directives and standards and general principles.
And you touch upon a very important aspect is training, and actually since this year we are mandating as well recurrent training, because training was always a mandatory requirement when handling or transporting live animals. And since the 1st of January 2020, actually recurrent training every 36 months is mandatory, so that people are always kept and having the right knowledge, especially when it comes to different type of species, new species as well that come into the transportation picture, but as well new methodology of transportation with the technology that evolves. But bringing youngsters into the business, and often when I remember when I was finishing high school and looking for what would I do at university, and some went for veterinary studies. Yeah. But the only idea was either to open your own small practice for pets, or then to go on to bigger farm animals. But who would be thinking that veterinarians are needed in very different areas, and especially when it comes to airports and within the airline business. And
the quarantine centres and stuff.
Absolutely. And it's a wider range of activities that is being dealt with with live animals. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
no, it's amazing. All the as we're looking out here now on the ramp with aircraft, the amount of businesses and technical skills and variety of jobs all associated around that aeroplane, and every time it lands at an airport, it's incredible. And the fact that it's global. So once you've got those skills, you can go anywhere with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Now, what do you think have been the biggest, should we say, the biggest problems in the past that have now been overcome because of the standardisation and the disciplines with regards to live animals?
Well, I think whether it's live animals or the different other special cargo areas, I think what is critical is the compliance, ensuring that it's been handled, transported in the best condition, and especially in compliance with the regulation. And this is where I think IATA has no enforcement mechanism to make sure that the standards are being applied or complied with. And this is where we've actually put together a certification program like the CEIV, the Center of Excellence for Independent Validators, that allows us as well to, and companies be able to showcase that they are doing it right, and complying with not only IATA requirements, but international and national requirements. So I think that the complexity is always to comply with the regulations, which is whether these are on the live animal side, but as well as on the pharmaceutical, for example.
And that's one of the areas that just talking to Mark earlier about the one source platform. So people will be able to see who's got the qualification, who's able to care, etc.
Exactly.
Which is important in the choice they make.
Well, it's our whole industry is looking towards visibility and transparency. And when we look at today the ability to look at different trade lanes, the capacity on the trade lanes, I think it's really important to provide that information, who's capable of doing what and where, whether these are on the operational side, on the knowledge, training, on the documentation side, the supplier management. And yes, one of the areas like any certification, whether it's a CEIV or, for example, on the pharma with a GDP, is really ensuring that the people are taking the requirements to the highest level, and allowing to be able to showcase those capabilities on a platform. Allow as well, for example, pharmaceutical companies to be able to do some risk management, understanding of specific destinations. If the capacity of the capabilities are not there, they might mitigate the risk by providing another type of packaging for their specialized sensitive product. So I think more information that is shared is to the best interest of everyone. And visibility and transparency is one of the main criteria of making that information available as well, free on charge of the IATA website.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as far as what opportunities do you see in the future for further improvements or any changes that you think from your experience would be beneficial? In the different just starting with again, just with live animals to start with.
I think there are always opportunities to look into. I think today there is and maybe just on the CEIV, to put more scrutiny on the different commodities and pharma, perishable, and or live animals, allow people to see that even though they've been doing it for so long, they still need to make sure that they're doing it right.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing a lot when it comes saying, yeah, we've been doing that business for so many years, but it's a matter of doing it the right way, and with all the need to adapt ourselves and with what is happening currently, I think definitely our business needs to be adaptive to what is happening. And challenges right now in transport of live animals, especially with transport and that are on hold in different countries. Well, there are supplies that can't be really reaching the destination. So.
No, exactly. Now, with the recurrent training every 3 years, is there any self-assessment or verification and validation that people have to do within that 3 years?
Whenever a company is going through the CEIV, that will be definitely verified. Having their, and I think it's a due diligence as well from every company, making sure that their people are trained, because if something happens, and especially on the live animal side, it will make the press right away. Definitely. And I think social media today can be very, very difficult.
And very powerful.
And very powerful. Yeah. So the scrutiny on that special care is very important. So I think it's a matter of just common sense to ensure that everyone keeps its knowledge current.
Yep.
And we'll see how we manage to be able to ensure that this information is made aware, and by the regulation, by the different training, by the different events, our dissemination of information allows people to really be aware of the fact that they need to be trained.
Exactly. Okay, so now if we use the same sort of questioning and the same sort of criteria, and we move up to perishables. Mm-hmm. How do you think the perishable market is developing? Because some of the things that I see, especially on imports when it arrives in some of the countries that I visit, doesn't get cleared quick enough. The temperatures are too high because the warehouses are then over capacity. They bring them out the front, waiting for the delivery of the vehicles to come and collect, and it's left outside for too long.
Well, perishables are one of the products that have been transported as well for some time. When at the very beginning, when we talked about temperature management or cool chain, I mean, perishable is definitely one of the areas where the airline business was really focusing on. Perishable will just keep on growing with the increased demand, increase of population. So this will definitely increase as well. I think what we've seen, what I would wish for is to maybe have more standardized processes and harmonized processes when it comes to perishables. And I think maybe to compare the three areas, when we look at quality and the expectations for that product, and if we take perishable pharma and live animals, with the perishables, you have an expectation and maybe an acceptance that there might be waste throughout before it actually reaches the final destination. On the pharmaceutical side, you want the highest quality. You can't really allow yourself to have pharmaceuticals that are which the integrity is not maintained. However, there is kind of a tolerance of potentially have some pharmaceuticals that might need to be scratched because of excursions or deviations. But when it comes to live animals, there's an expectation of zero mortality at destination, if you look at a bit that scale. And I would like to change the fact of now on the perishable side. And yes, we used to transport perishables. We used to have a number of waste. There's an acceptance when it comes to flowers to potentially have 30% of waste before it actually reaches the destination or the end user. But I think today, when it comes, we're becoming more aware. Sustainability becoming more green. I think if there is a push, it might not be on the regulatory side, even though when it comes to food safety, there is a very important push on the regulatory side. But I think it will come more on the consumer side, to be more responsible, to ensure that all the work that is being carried out already from the producer or the grower can't just be wasted before it reaches, because there are resources, costs that are already involved from the very beginning. But when we discuss about the perishable side with the industry, we see that on the transportation journey, it's not really where the waste is increasing. But I think we talked about care and due diligence. We have to make sure that throughout the journey, we within our transportation or air freight industry, we don't increase that potential waste.
Exactly.
So everything should be put in place that at the beginning there are the right infrastructure when it comes to flowers, some perishables, that they are kept in the right temperature so that throughout the journey they are maintained within that temperature and come in good conditions again on the fact of quality at destination. So again, we've actually developed a CEIV as well to put more scrutiny on perishables, awareness, what can be done. And yes, I think in today's world, when we talk about climate change, sustainability, become more greener, I think there is a place for some of the key stakeholders in the industry to maybe make a difference in becoming more green and looking into the perishable side. But it's all about the business today when it comes to Incoterms as well, depending on perishables. Arriving at destination, the consignee might only pay what actually is viable.
Yeah.
So there's more than just a nice spirit of sustainability. Might need to look into how the business has been doing, how we've been doing business over the years, and how we might want to look into it differently. But I'd like to potentially see more requirements put in place on the perishable side to be able to address those challenges. Yeah,
no, definitely. And for me, I just can't understand why, it's so important coming into each country, the perishables, it goes onto our tables. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to make sure it's in the best possible condition and it's got the best chance of being used when it should be, which is why I don't understand why there's so many delays. And personally, I would incentivize the delay by increasing terminal handling charges to make sure it gets out quickly, because like in some cases, people would be shocked to know how long it stays before it's collected. So I think those disciplines are very, very important. Do you see certain criteria being linked to standards or within CEIV of how long certain products should be kept, or the maximum that they should be allowed to be stored on arrival?
Well, I think there are different variables that comes into place. So as you said, customs clearance, for example, and the availability to be picked up. We don't have any kind of standardized time frame that we put in place. But I think it all comes back to infrastructure as well, and capabilities at destination, understanding what is available, so that if there is some product that needs to be stored for some time, you actually have the available infrastructure to do so. That's a different matter. But do you not think that if you had certain specific standards, you'd even speed up the authority efficiencies as well? Well, it's how to influence authorities. I think if we have a more streamlined process, definitely, and working together with the authorities, because again, I think we're looking into a collaborative approach, and authorities are part of this whole supply chain. Yeah. And I think sometimes they have to be made aware as well of the criticality of some of the products. It's maybe an ideal way of seeing it, but involving the authorities, especially when it comes to now more in the e-world, data sharing, getting the information prior of arrival, being able to clear it in advance.
Exactly.
Will definitely help the whole process. But you can do so only by involving the authorities. Yeah. And there are some airports that actually have put in place project as well, involving the sanitary authorities to allow such processes to be quicker. So I think we're moving towards, especially in the e-world, and having data sharing in advance will definitely help.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%. Right, so we've covered that, and now pharma, the important one, keeping people the way they should be, helping lives. Even more important to keep that in good condition. We did a podcast with an ex-colleague from Donata, Mr. Williams, and he's with who's he with now? It's Thermo Fisher, isn't it? Thermo Fisher. Thermo Fisher. And I was so impressed when I made a visit to their facility. The staff all over the world. Okay, every single one of them had a specific devotion and care, because what they did with all of the products, instead of just having the medical names or the technical name, they actually also indicated what the treatment was for.
Excellent.
And they did that so that everybody could associate with either a friend or a family member or somebody they knew that was suffering from one of those particular illnesses or whatever. So they just had such an extra ownership. It was a fantastic example of a culture that's so focused on what they're doing, and all of them understood why they were doing what they were doing. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting, because when you humanize as well some of the process and the operations, people are understanding why they're doing it. And there have been some companies out there as well, some integrators that have put some big information within the warehouse, and mentioning it's not just a box, but it's saving lives. And as soon as you explain to someone the importance of the job somebody is doing, it will automatically as well allow that person to take a little bit more care of in treating that potential box.
Yeah.
But definitely understanding, raising awareness is key, and I think it's in today's world, especially when it comes to potential future vaccines. I think it's even more so important to ensure that this will be treated well, quickly, in the best conditions, and hopefully there'll be soon shipments of vaccines all over the world. I really wish so.
Yeah. That, I mean, especially relevant today. I mean,
yes.
Like, please God, that they'll come up with something sooner rather than later. And but that's another thing that I've seen. If people understand that they're delivering hope for somebody, then the extra care and attention is so necessary. Now, you've obviously seen the developments, and you mentioned earlier that if somebody knows that there are certain risk issues in a particular location, that they can mitigate by changing the types of packaging, etc. Some of the testing that goes on with like both extreme heat and extreme colds, I mean, it's a very complex concept, isn't it, to manage?
It's, I think, pharmaceutical companies have a lot of requirements to comply with, especially on the GMP. Qualifying their packaging is extremely important, and this is where, whether it's extreme, as you said, extreme hot, extreme cold. But they have a lot of knowledge on the different trade lanes, and actually more and more right now they are building up their own data platform in order to be able to mitigate those risks. They have been discussing with a number of different pharmaceutical companies to actually they are combining whether these are product information, transportation information, infrastructure information into their own dedicated platform to be able to track, trace, especially with all the transmitting devices, understanding in real time temperature, shock, vibration, humidity, so that they know exactly at what stage the product potentially might be affected or not. So I mean they are very well aware, and they are even more so collaborating with the air freight industry to get that information, and sometimes sharing different type of platforms to be able to share those data which they don't have, that we have, to allow to mitigate the risk, especially on the trade lanes.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like their capability data, what they think of us as an industry, and how detailed their information is. You know, with who in the chain do they trust, who they know is a little bit weak, so they have to do something.
But if you look at several years back, where the importance of transporting pharmaceuticals and you were looking at bilateral discussions between the shipper and the freight forwarder with the airlines and so on, and the whole aspect of the GDP back in 2013 that actually pushed as well the transport industry to comply with some of the requirements, to all of a sudden realize that we are all part of a chain, and if we don't make it, if we don't communicate right, especially roles and responsibilities, it will be difficult to ensure that the product integrity is maintained throughout the chain. And as we moved on with ensuring the compliance on the GDP requirements, and we developed as well the CEIV Pharma, it raised as well the awareness of the importance of multilateral discussions, that if there's an expectation from a pharmaceutical company or shipper, that this information is shared not only with the freight forwarder, but even further in the supply chain, because it's so sensitive. You want to make sure that everyone understands the criticality of that product. But in the same way, the shippers community need to understand the constraint we have within an airport and a cargo warehouse, tarmac, understanding the number of different stakeholders that are involved, the different handover points, because it's not just bringing a box to an airport and the box flies to the destination and here it arrives to the consignee. If you look at the complexity of an airport, and this is really important to make everyone aware as well. Outside of, for us, it's so common or becoming so obvious, but it's absolutely not obvious for those who are actually outside of that environment. So bringing the discussion to understanding how the operation works has been really one of the key elements as we developed, whether it's the standards together with the pharmaceutical company and the full supply chain, but as well on the CEIV to put the focus on the operation, understanding what needs to be done, but especially understanding who is taking care of what at what stage of the supply chain.
Yep, no, that's exactly, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. Now, what do you think, or where do you think the CEIV and the GDP is going? I mean, if it was like in the old days, Muhammad Ali against Fraser, it's like the two big heavyweights. Which one do you think would win and why?
I don't think we are in a competition. Honestly, I think what is really important is that in any case, everyone that is handling, transporting pharmaceutical must be complying with the GDP requirements. The CEIV allows to translate the GDP into the operational air freight world. I think both are complementary. It always depends on the level of certification a company would like to go through. And it's as well the importance of understanding how visible that company wants to become.
Yeah.
Because today all the GDP requirements cannot be met by the supply chain stakeholders. That's why the operational aspect on the CEIV is very important to translate them into those areas. But I think what is important is that whatever certification you go, whether it's a GDP, a CEIV, or a other type of certification, I think it's a matter of understanding that the company is ready to raise the bar to get to the level where they should be, understanding that they are complying, showcasing that they are actually comply with the regulation. So there will be a parallel development. Some decide to only be GDP certified or compliant. Fair enough, depending if you have more a network approach or international activities, you might want to go with the CEIV because it allows a consistent certification over the whole network, so you can ensure that you have all your network certified on the same basis. But honestly, and this is something that is very important, is definitely it's not one against the other, is pushing the industry to making sure that everyone is aware, everyone complies, everyone is trained when it comes to handling and transporting pharmaceutical products. So, because at the end of the day, we're doing it's not just to have a certification on the wall. We're doing it because there is a patient at the end.
Because we care.
And we care, exactly. I mean, every one of us has been taking medication, will in the future take medication, and you just want to make sure that that medication that you are taking is the right one, especially for what you have, and is working, especially.
100%, 100%. Mm-hmm. So now, what motivates you now? So you've been doing this now, you've been looking after special cargo for 10 years, full decade. Now we're starting another decade.
Yes.
And obviously we've known each other that long, so the time just flies. There's been huge benefits, huge improvements. Yeah. What do you think the next decade's going to bring?
That's a very good question. Very good question. I think my crystal ball is broken, so I have difficulties to answer that question, but definitely I think the current situation will bring a lot of new opportunities. I think we'll need to rethink of the situation in which we are today, the challenges we are facing, whether it's on the transportation, whether it's on the manufacturing side. But I think we'll have to think business differently. We can't do anything else than just think business differently. Because today we are facing every day with a new challenge, restrictions, which maybe will become more agile, creative as well, find workarounds in the way we're doing business today. It will shake a little bit the way it's been done today. But definitely we see that we are in a world that quite sensitive, and we are dependent on a lot of different aspects. So it's difficult to say where the opportunities lie, but when we look at the live animal, for example, especially on the regulating wildlife trade from the China side, I think will definitely help as well that area. On the pharmaceutical, there will be huge opportunity as well in terms of manufacturing, transporting, and hopefully the vaccines soon. But do we have the means, the capacity to do it right away, right now, with the increased difficulties? I think we will. I think we are an industry that has been fighting, will continue fighting.
Never ending.
And exactly, and definitely I'll be dedicated in all three areas in making sure we continue the standardization, harmonization, and streamline the processes. But one thing I must say that it's really a industry work, because IATA is never working in isolation. We are working with a pool of experts out there that allows us really to push the agenda forward, and that's really, really important. We have a supply chain approach, and this is where I think it will even create more collaborative opportunities in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you, Andrea. Right, we've come to the end. Now, if you were to have a magic wand, what would you change tomorrow on any of the three?
Wow. That's
What would Andrea's wish be?
I think if my first wish right now would be to get rid of the virus so we can go back to business.
Tell me about it. Yeah, yeah.
But in terms of
Incredible challenge, huh?
yeah, it's a very, very important challenge. But I think we'll be creative in that. I don't think I have a wish. I just hope we can, as an industry, raise from what's happening today, and that the consequences would be not too difficult for the different entities involved. So.
Yeah, we should probably pay recognition for all the people that are caring for those that have been affected and the families of those that have been affected. It's a terrible thing, terrible thing. Andrea, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
It's always great to see you, spend time with you, and your dedication is incredible.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Thank you.